Martin Luther King Day, everybody. We're going to show the love today and start out with a little "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" before we introduce Mr. Jim Malvaso. So, woo!
All right, Mr. Jim, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Ty, you ready?
I sure am.
All right. Well, we're here to celebrate Martin Luther King Day, right, Ty?
Yes, we are. So, and then do a Martin Luther King Day, everybody. We're going to show the love today and start out with a little "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" before we introduce Mr. Jim Malvaso. So, woo! All right, there we go. A little rusty.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Oh, this is fun. Kevin, thank you, man. We got Jim Malvaso, everybody, the VP of HR at Constellation Brands up in Rochester, New York. Jim, thanks for coming on our show, Timeout with Leaders. We just like to, showcase the talent and leadership up there in y'all's neck of the woods. And Jim, I'm going to start out by asking you, what was your most fond memory over there in East Lansing?
Oh my gosh, East Lansing, I loved it. So being part of a larger school like Michigan State was fantastic. And they made a bit of a basketball run when I was there. And so really enjoyed watching the Spartans play, the Teen Cleaves, and, I got to a couple football games as well. So it was a good time for sure.
Nice.
What was
you were there with the team,
best sports
Charlie
team
Bell?
that you remember? Yeah.
I just so I remember, Mateen, and I'm trying to remember some of the other players that were there, but they made it to the Final Four the year I graduated from grad school, and then the next year they went on to win it all. So it was pretty cool.
Was Izzo the coach, Ty?
Yeah, Izzo. Yeah,
really?
Okay. Absolutely. Izzo was the coach. Yeah, still there and going strong. So
don't want to see him in March. Too. He's scary in March.
That's right. So. Good stuff.
Especially with all those that recruiting class from Flint, Michigan. I remember they called them the Flintstones.
That's right. You got it.
What do you eat in East Lansing if I'm ever around? Is there any specific? I'm a foodie if you can't tell, and I miss y'all's delis like crazy sometimes. So if I'm ever in East Lansing, does something pop out to you?
Believe it or not, they had a lot of good chicken wing spots out there. So,
wow.
Being from Rochester, New York, and so close to Buffalo, now nothing compares to, Buffalo wings, but they did a pretty good job up there. So, we used to go and, yeah.
My buddy in Boston complains that there is like no chicken wings in the state of Massachusetts that are even close to Buffalo style. So it's amazing to hear. All right. Yeah. Well, Jim, if we like to kind of learn from our guests and Tyler being very musical, as we just saw as that intro there, first chair. Music means a lot to us. What's your favorite kind of music? And if you had to listen to one song and one song only the rest of your life on repeat, what would that be, Jim?
Oh my gosh, well that's a great question. So I'm a huge Dave Mathews Band fan.
Okay.
So I've traveled around to see he and the band play a couple different countries, been to Ireland and Canada and down in Mexico to see those guys play, and they're fantastic. So I'd have to say The Stone is one of my favorite jams by Dave Mathews. And so when I'm not listening to Dave, though, Mumford & Sons, I enjoy some country music as well. And so kind of dabble in all the fun genres there.
What one Dave Mathews song could you recite no problem? Didn't even need the lyrics didn't even need the melody to know all the lyrics to the song.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. The Best of What's Around, is pretty good. I just got to hear the music and then I start going.
All right.
So if I had to do it just off the cuff, I might.
Tyler,
not be so
any
good,
Dave?
Mr. Boyd Tinsley, I believe, sets the bar pretty high.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. When I was a kid, he made the violin cool, and then back then you didn't have all these YouTube videos on all these sheets of music. You went to this place called Binjax, and they may have had the Disney book, and you're like, oh, this is fun, instead of your Mozart, Brahms, and Beethoven stuff. But yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed just his style of play and just kind of bumped it up a little bit and made it fun. But,
absolutely. Yeah, Boyd
Jim.
used to jam with Ants Marching. You know, we get the violin going down there in their little riff. So yeah,
Yeah, and
phenomenal.
there's nothing like rocking it so hard that the horsehair starts flying off your bow. That's what I knew I was the man in like 6th grade. I was like, yeah, I need a new bow, Mom. I've been rocking too hard in orchestra. Yeah,
That's awesome.
And this is coming from a very big sports guy. I think he said he made All-State. And how many sports did you play?
My dad wanted me to be cultured, so I think he gave me like $5 a week to play an orchestra. So anyway, you can get your kids to do other things, you know. Yeah, Jim.
Absolutely.
And Jim, do you have a family up here in Rochester?
I do, yeah. So I married to my wife for 20 plus years. 22 years will be this year. We have 4 kids. They're senior, junior, freshman in high school, and then I got a son who's in 7th grade. So, you know, outside of work, we certainly stay busy with all of their activities, and we're now managing the college process. My daughter, my oldest, is trying to figure out where she's going to go to school, which she says is not going to be anywhere close to New York State. She wants to go.
Smart girl.
She wants to go somewhere warm. So you know, we'll see how that all shakes out.
Golly, and Kevin just became a dad, and we always talk about these kids nowadays, like it's such a different world they grow up in. I feel like how accessible information is to them compared to us. You know, I remember watching NFL films once a year, hearing the guys talk on the sideline and be like, "This is my only hour getting this." Now they're on TikTok and Instagram, hearing the whole thing. What you know, all the conversations. What do you press on your kids, Jim, compared to when we grew up? You know, it was more towards manners and character, and that's it. Is there another level nowadays that to steer your kids in the right direction?
Well, so it's all those things like values, right? You want to teach your kids to be respectful and trustworthy and kind and thoughtful and generous. But you know, with social media right now, things are forever, right? So anything you put out there, people can go see and see that, like colleges. So we try to impress on our kids that anything you put out there on social media, just know that people can come back and see that and use it, you know, for or against you in a lot of ways. And so we would really try to discourage, you know, that as much as we can. You know, so much around face-to-face interaction and being able to socialize. Voice to voice is going away based on the social media. Like they just want to text. Well, I'll text my teacher. I'll go. I don't need to go see my teacher. I just want to send them an email. I want to text them. It's like, no, you got to get out there and you got to learn how to have a conversation with somebody face to face. And so, and we push that very much, you know, with our kids. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think they get the message.
Well, I think it's so important today. I think, like you said, I think sometimes we get more comfortable behind the digital screen, and we get to see that almost every single day, as like almost everything is now tailored specifically to us based off of our likes, and everything's data driven. So everything's like customized to us. Even Netflix, you turn on Netflix, it's like, oh, this looks great, even though they probably have 10,000 different things on there. It's pretty remarkable. As we're kind of switching gears and we're talking about MLK Day today, Martin Luther King Day. It's a day that I love. First time I've ever had it off is actually today, which is pretty cool. Never had it off before, but thanks to obviously where we are, my organization kind of recognized it. It should have been a holiday. So it's great. But what does MLK as a leader, Jim, mean to you when you're thinking about Martin Luther King as a leader, as a teacher, as a speaker? What does he mean to you as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, you know, I'll start off by saying I had the opportunity to go to Montgomery, Alabama 2 years ago, actually around this time, to the Equal Justice Initiative, and went and toured the Legacy Museum with some of my colleagues. And I would say it was probably one of the most gut-wrenching but powerful experiences to go through, to see, you know, how our African-American Black community was disadvantaged, you know, through so many years. And just to see and read these stories about all the social injustices that have taken place. And, you know, obviously we see those still take place today. It was really an eye-opening experience as I've gone through my own education journey on this. And I think we're all, you know, doing our part to that over these last few years with what's gone on here locally and throughout the US. But, you know, I would say, you know, the inclusivity is really important, and how we make sure we embrace, you know, all people of, you know, different cultures, styles. It's so important, for me with my family as we talk about these, social injustices that have taken place, around us, in our schools. But it's also important, obviously, within our company, too, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to look and represent the communities in which we live and work. And so we've done great things at Constellation Brands around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Feel very proud of that, with many of the business resource groups that we formed over the years, just to bring, again, different perspectives, education, and inclusivity to our organization. And our employees are very passionate about everything that we're doing, which is wonderful, and really makes me feel proud of, the culture that we're building and that we have. So
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because Constellation Brands, obviously, the talk of Rochester. You're one of those companies that I think a lot of other organizations idolize, right? I think a lot of other organizations see you guys as the crown jewel because people love working for you. It's not really a challenge for Constellation Brands from a recruiting perspective. Everybody's already looking. They're already kind of combing through the website, seeing what jobs are available constantly. They almost idolize you in some ways, right, Jim? And I think that move, and speaking with several other people who are Constellation Brands, what did that move to downtown initiative mean to the organization from a DE&I perspective? Because I know that was a big push, and you guys were more about action than words.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you just said it right there. I mean, it was very important for us to get closer to the community within Rochester. Constellation and the Sands have done so many wonderful things within our community. And I think this is just another opportunity for us as Rochester is looking to revitalize itself and to have, Constellation Brands and our support and what we hope that's going to bring and spur, more businesses to come downtown and to utilize what a great space and area that we have there. So I'm not sure if you've seen some of the revitalization plans that they are doing with Rock the River Way and all that, but it's going to be fantastic when it's all done. Beautiful. And so we're pretty excited about it.
It's going to be so nice. Tyler's butt's going to get back on a plane to Rochester potentially. But Ken Glazer, one of our past guests, was just talking about this initiative and really what it meant. And I just love that Constellation was not afraid. Like you think about being outside and on the east side of town, and we know Rochester, we talk about east side, west side, just like West Side Story, more than anything I've ever heard in Rochester. Moving up here, I found it the most entertaining thing to get in a conversation about, just because I had no idea about it at all. But what made you guys do that, right? I mean, you would have said that some people would have called you crazy. I mean, coming downtown, people say downtown's dangerous. Why would you possibly go downtown? Why was it so important to you guys in leadership to really go down there?
Yeah, so I mean, we have other major offices across the U.S. in Chicago and San Francisco, San Antonio, and we recognize sort of the benefits of working in a very diverse community from recruiting perspective, culturally, giving our employees that experience. And so, having this opportunity in Rochester just seemed to make sense, for all of those reasons. And so, 2024 is when we're going to be, making the move. We got a lot of work to do between now and then as we, look at that aqueduct building, which is pretty cool, by the way. But we're excited. That time's going to go by fast, and we'll be down there before you know it.
Yeah, I'm fired up to hear about it. When I first came out there from Northwest Arkansas, I looked at downtown. I told King Glazer this last week. I said, "Where is everything?" So it's kind of cool to see, some big players taking a step, and it won't take long, for folks like you, Jim, your company to really make a difference down there from an outside perspective, at least. Once you're in the bubble, it's like it almost seems like it's impossible, but seeing it from an outside perspective, just like I had to see like Northwest Arkansas from an outside perspective to move up there to be like, dang, that economy wasn't too bad down there with whole Walmart and JB Hunt and Tyson, but being in the bubble, I never saw it, But I wanted to ask you, I loved how you brought up you had to feel it in Montgomery, Alabama. I had an opportunity as a kid playing AAU basketball. We practiced at Little Rock Central, and they have a vast history of the education and the diversity and stuff. And I just learned about it such a young age. And I think it just helped me open my mind up so quickly. I just wanted to also turn gears and ask you, what's your favorite part? Like Kevin said, I just jumped into the recruiting space and I love it. I love not just selling a job, but getting someone in a position and then getting someone else to build them up around them. I don't like to just throw candidates. I like to get someone placed and someone who's going to even build that person up and that person up and that person up. And I tell you what, my days go by pretty quick. So what is your favorite part of being the VP of HR over there? What part would you do for free is what I'm trying to ask, Jim.
I really enjoy the coaching and mentoring aspect of my role. So, I have the opportunity to work with, many great leaders across, Constellation. And, I think building, trusting relationships with folks, because leaders come to HR with, what's on their mind and challenges that they may be experiencing, within their departments, business strategies that they want to tackle. And we are a very good sounding board, for them and help them provide some guidance and advice, whether it be people-related issues. A lot of them are people-related issues, that we deal with. How do we get people to be more successful in their roles? How do we continue to, develop our team for succession reasons? So I really enjoy, that aspect of my job. So one, the coaching, and then I have a team that, that I work with, and I love seeing them grow and develop, and seeing them achieve their dreams and aspirations within the organization is something that I take a lot of pride in. A mentor once told me that, a mark of a great leader isn't how many people he or she leads, but how many leaders he or she creates. And, I think that's one of the things that, I've been most proud of, in my time working, is just seeing people that, again, have wanted to achieve, a certain position, and I've helped, them navigate in some small ways to help them get there. And that's very rewarding as a leader.
God, that's awesome. And how do you build that trust to be like an effective soundboard?
Yeah. So that's a great question. The first and foremost is you gotta deliver what you say you're going to deliver. And so where I find people kind of fall short is when they overpromise and underdeliver. So, if we, set, realistic expectations that this is what we're going to do. And even if we're falling short on that, to be forward enough to come and say, listen, I'm not going to get you what I wanted to today, but I'm going to get it to you to tomorrow. And here's, what's going on. So, I think that's really the important aspect of, building that trust with leaders. And then from there, that's your reputation. And so your reputation is something that's so important within the HR community, because, again, we're confidence, and, people need to feel like what they are going to share with us can be kept confidential, and not going to go anywhere else. So, anyways,
a lot of people in HR talk about the challenge, right, of playing both sides, right, is that you have to be there for the employee, like you said, and we're talking about mental health, emotional health, financial well-being today. We're talking about all these different things. Collectively, businesses are now having to protect both the well-being professionally and personally. How do you play that space, and how do you play it so well, Jim? Because it seems like you have built the reputation internally with the key business stakeholders, right, to pull off this initiative or come up with the DE&I strategy to really push that type of culture through the management, multi channels of management I'm sure you're having to deal with. Like, how have you built that relationship with the business? And on your LinkedIn, you talk about quantitative, showing how much value that you actually are providing in HR, but also how are you still there for the employee so they don't feel like you're only there serving the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a good balance that needs to be had between being the employee and advocate and the company advocate. And so, I think, our moral compass, helps, make sure that we get to the right place, on that, to be thoughtful of, employees' concerns. And, I would say businesses over the last 2 years, have really stepped up, and I would say I've done everything, and I can say specifically for Constellation, we've done everything that we can to be employee advocates, during what's been a very difficult time with this pandemic. And, you think of the challenges that people have working from home, small kids, families, it's just been overwhelming, especially on the mental health side of things. And so, those are things that the business turned to HR very quickly when this pandemic happened. And, we had to step up, and we had to step in to, provide solutions to some unique situations that, a lot of us haven't ever experienced. And so, there's a delicate balance there between trying to do what's best for the company and what's best for the employee. And, I think you fall back onto the relationships that you have with the leaders to say, you know what, I think we really need to, do X, Y, and Z for our employees here on this particular issue. It's the right thing. Might cost us a little bit more as an organization, but you know what, it's the right thing to do. I would say, Constellation, we payroll protected all of our employees during the pandemic when people couldn't work. It cost us some money, but it was the right thing to do for our employees. We wanted to make sure that they didn't go without pay during a stretch of time. And, some companies weren't able to do that. Again, we feel very fortunate that we were able to do that. And again, as we look back on these last 2 years, a lot of positive things have come out of that. And I think that's how we build culture and how we build commitment from our employees. They look at those little things and say, wow, the company does care about me. So, our actions speak louder than our words. And that's one thing that I would say at Constellation, we're proud of. We walk the walk and talk the talk.
God, there's so much to unpack there, Tyler.
Yeah,
I literally so much to unpack. The employee advocates, obviously, but the one thing I want to say, Jim, though, is that you had to build that brand, that recognition, that reputation, and that trust for the business to even turn to HR with some of these challenges or these business-related challenges. So kudos to you and your team to really understand and have already built that relationship to turn during times of crisis to HR. And that's kind of what I talk about very frequently, and Tyler knows, is about the evolution of HR for the revolution, or revolution of HR for the evolution of business. It's something that I'm very passionate about because now HR is stepping up to the plate and they can become these types of leaders within the business. What would you say to people in HR that sometimes when they're coming across a challenging conversation? I saw, again, you're really good at, you just took a course on conflict resolution, right? I think challenging conversations. Something I am very poor at myself. It's a weakness that I have identified. What types of advice do you give people? Because odds are HR is probably finding themselves in these types of environments more frequently than not. For the previous thing that I mentioned with the employees and the business, what would you tell them? Like, what type of advice for these types of difficult conversations, let's say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so first and foremost, when you're having a difficult conversation, you always got to make sure that you're coming at it in a respectful and positive, perspective. People can shut down when they feel like they're being attacked. But from an HR perspective, I would say some advice that I always give folks is don't be a wallflower. When you're sitting in the meetings with, business leaders and you have something that you want to share, don't be a wallflower. You got to voice your opinion. And so that does take time and effort and practice because it can be intimidating. It's something that I've had to work at, during my career as well, feeling like the confidence to say something and that I feel strongly or passionate about, not wanting to sound like, oh gosh, how are they going to react to what I just said? You got to set that aside, have some confidence, and again, be able to share that. So that's something that I talk to my team about, as they're partnering with, their folks, within the business. And so, again, it's not always easy. Does take some practice, but I always tell them, you have my support. I'm here to help be, your backup if you need be, if needed, and to help tackle whatever situation that you're encountering. So
cool. Partnering with the business. That's that's the mindset.
For sure. It all sounds so simple, but it ain't. I talk to HR leaders and hiring managers all the time, and just to get someone on the schedule for 10 a.m. on the 22nd. My goodness, it's give an arm and a leg to do some of this stuff, and you throw in the emotional intelligence and all this other stuff about it's just I love it. Let me just say that, and it ain't easy, And you keep mentioning your mentor, Jim. Who have you learned all this stuff from? Who really took you under your wing and kind of showed you the ropes?
Yeah, so I would say my current boss, who's our CHRO, has just been phenomenal. He's been with the company almost 9 years, and I've been fortunate to work for him during most of that time, and he's just been fantastic for me, and helping with my development over the years. So I owe a lot of, what I've been able to accomplish from him. But I've also had, mentors outside of work. I know you guys talked to Mike Faulkner. He and I talk, on a regular basis, and he's a great sounding board to me as, we're navigating, or I'm navigating some challenges. And so it's nice to have some in-house, support, as well as out of the house support to talk to folks. My dad was a business leader, for many years, and, fortunate enough to have him as a quick resource to kind of pick up the phone and call as well. And, so it's nice to be able to tap into, a couple of different areas as needed.
One of the things that I'm formulating my thoughts, but Ocean Tomo came out recently, and I know Constellation Brands is a publicly traded organization, but they came out and said that organizations value today, 90% is intangible and only 10% is tangible. We think about Constellation Brands, we think about the beer, the wine, the brands and the logos themselves. Obviously that has value, but they're still suggesting that 90% of the valuation of Constellation Brands is your people. How, when you came into that environment and that organization from past companies, what was the biggest difference that you saw in maybe the tonality in these meetings or the words that they were using on how they viewed their people? I talk commonly about viewing people as an asset, right, to the business. You invest in them, you protect them, and over time they should bring you a greater return. But Constellation Brands just seems to have a different mentality when it comes to their people. You talked about making more of an investment because it's worth it, right? Some people in HR are like, what does that even mean, Jim? Like, I'm asking for money, I can't get anything. So what is that mindset, and what did you notice the biggest disparaging difference as you started there?
Yeah, sure. So, first and foremost, Rob Sands at the time was the CEO, of our organization. And I'd be in meetings, or I'd see him, come, and we'd have town halls, and he would talk about the importance of people. So you heard it from the top, number one, and that trickled down from, the executive team and the leaders then below. And so that message was always important as part of our values, and how we operate. And so just knowing that and seeing that from the top of the house was so important to me. Just how visible, Rob and then the rest of the executive team was back, almost 10 years ago when I started, was really important to me. And I think that made me feel valued, as an employee. And, plus, you add in some of the benefits and our competitive pay structure and how we incentivize our employees. Like, all those things mean something as well, and make you feel like, all right, I am valued, by the organization. We do well, we sell all these great brands, all these great products. We have opportunities to give back to the community, to participate in volunteer, things within the community, because, that was important to us in Constellation. And so the fact that I was able to participate and get involved in all those things, again, just made me feel valued as an employee, and why I love working for the company still today. We don't have a hard time, selling the brands that we do for employees coming in, because people love Corona. The industry that the industry that we are in is pretty sexy. When you think about, beer, wine, spirits, and now even cannabis is where we're dabbling in that with our investment up in Canada. So, and there's just been a lot of power behind, those stories and the development that we try to give our employees. And I don't know, I could go on and on, but hopefully that gives you a little flavor of some of the things that have been important to me.
It's just really cool to hear. I think from your lens, right, the HR side, you're the second HR member that we've had on this show. But just this leadership, because I think that we need more leadership in HR to get some of these types of initiatives and these projects within the organization, because it's nice to have leaders that see it so clearly at Constellation Brands, but sometimes, like you said, sometimes people just need coaching. Now, in your estimation, because Tyler and I talk about leadership quite frequently, the one question I wanted to ask before I forgot was, are leaders born or are they developed?
Well, I think it's, a little bit of both, right? I think nobody's perfect, right? There is no best, only better. And so I think, leaders, you have some innate characteristics where some people are a little bit more vocal and want to step into those situations, where you have others that may be a little bit quieter, and that's okay too. it's knowing when to pull those folks, into the moments to step up and on a project or whatever it is. So I think it's a little bit of both, which is a great question. I never really kind of thought of it that way, but I think over time I've gotten better as a leader through the experiences that I've had, the mistakes that I've made. It's so important to learn from your mistakes. The biggest mistake is not doing anything from the learnings, and so I feel like I've become a better leader through some of the experiences and the pitfalls that I've had over time. And so if you embrace those opportunities, that's going to even make you better tomorrow. And I talk a lot about that with my team and the folks that I work with.
Dude, that is awesome. And I think you nailed it on the head, Jim, that recruiting ain't too hard when you work for a sexy company. I love when I have an awesome opportunity, or if it's just like a manufacturer. I'm like, hey guys, this is a manufacturer. Just your brain is awesome. And where do you think the Sands learned all this from? Do they ever share, or is it just organic? Like I gotta know this. Like,
so I was, Marvin started the business, almost a little over 75 years ago, and what Richard and Rob have been able to grow the business into, and now Bill, our current CEO, has just been phenomenal. And so what started out as a small, wine business, we got into beer back in 2013. That was sort of an amazing experience, one to be part of. And then, we're part of the cannabis industry now, and where that frontier is going to take us. So it's been amazing. And we've, a little luck along the way, right? I think businesses, experience a little luck, in their success, but it's not without a lot of hard work from our employees, some great vision from our leaders. And we got a lot of smart people that work at Constellation. That's been one of the things that I've enjoyed a lot too. The people are fantastic.
Absolutely. And I think I love it how you talked about being valued. I mean, there's nothing like it, if you feel valued, especially by folks like you mentioned. What gets you out of bed in the morning, Jim? What's the one thing that gets you out of bed nowadays after working for these folks for 9 years and 9 months, I think I saw?
Yeah. So, I would say it's all about the history that we're going to write. So as I think about what our future, holds, it's great to go back and look at the things that we've accomplished and feel proud about that. But I'm also excited about what's to come. We have such a bright future. We're getting even closer to the consumer. And so what are the new brands that we're going to come out with, or the new seltzers that we're going to come up with, and maybe even the cannabis space. We just announced, a deal with, Coca-Cola and Fresca. So what's that going to look like? So from an employee perspective, that's exciting, for me. And I don't know all the details around all of that, but, I know that's something that's I look forward to, as well as a lot of my colleagues. So.
My goodness, that's freaking awesome.
It's an exciting environment to be around, but I would still challenge Jim to say that I guarantee if you guys didn't treat your employees right with those nice compensation structures and the benefits and just your mantra about, I know you guys give back to your employees, you guys do a lot in the community because the Sands themselves are very philanthropic. If you didn't do those things, I don't know if it would be as easy to still recruit as it is probably today for Constellation Brands. Do you feel that?
Yeah, so I would say those are pretty important values that we have as an organization. If we didn't do those, I think the people that we're trying to attract today, and I think any organization, people that are trying to attract are looking at those things to say, all right, you do, these things within your four walls, but what do you do outside? How do you give back? What are you doing, with, for supporting, social injustice? Our employees are proud of the fact that we are participative in all of that. We give back to female founding companies, Black owned businesses as well. We've put bogey out there that we're going to invest $100 million in each of those respective categories. Prospective employees look at that and say, all right, you're not just out for yourselves, but you're also out to help the community and other businesses be successful. And so I would say that's a tribute to the leaders that we have at our organization, from Bill and his executive team, and Rob and Richard, obviously. And so, we feel that, and it's something that, again, I'm very proud of, that we invest in that way.
I've worked for a lot of publicly traded companies, and sometimes you can certainly feel that ones that are I guess, more slaves to their stockholders than others. And Constellation Brands it doesn't seem like they're afraid of their stockholders. Their stockholders trust, I'm one of them, knows that you guys take care of your employees, and over time, the innovation is going to be there. You listen to your employees. You're always almost on that cutting edge. And it's really exciting to really hear. Now, let's kind of flip gears. We're in the HR space. We're talking about the future of work. You're kind of talking about cannabis. Now, if you talked cannabis 5 years ago, people would have looked at you like you got 12 heads, probably, Jim. We're evolving at such a rate right now in the world of work as well, with the innovations in technology and AI. Where, in your estimation, are you guys changing, like how you're recruiting, right? How you're evaluating talent? Are you all skills based, or is it character with some skills based hiring? Because as we evolve, new skills are going to be needed almost monthly or quarterly. What are you guys doing from a talent perspective, or a talent or human capital perspective there at Constellation Brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, a fairly robust talent development program where, through an annual cycle, we go through and work with the business to develop what are the capabilities that we need to be successful within each function. We identify what those capabilities are, and then we see where our gaps exist. As part of that, we also go through succession planning to say, all right, where are our critical roles? Where's the talent that we have in the organization, and where are our gaps? All that information is fed into our talent acquisition model and team, so that we can go out and do the necessary recruiting for those positions. So, there's a little bit of an art, but a little bit of a science to the process that we have. And, this is something that we've, are in the process of doing right now. And, our business is fully engaged in that process, because they know the importance of getting out ahead and recruiting in what is a very difficult labor market right now. We talk about the Great Resignation. A lot of people are jumping ship for different opportunities. And so, we're obviously concerned, that we will experience some turnover. And so how do we get out ahead of that? And so I think this process and some of the retention tools that we have, help mitigate that. Are we going to be turnover free? No, we're going to see attrition happen, as any company does, but making sure that we're mindful of where the areas are that we need to go, mine that talent and the skill sets that we need is very important. And we have a pretty good process in place to help with all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say good talent's hotter than the housing market right now. I'll talk to somebody, and in about 48 minutes, they're gone, So it's sign them up, fail fast, or whatever I keep hearing from all these folks out there. Jim, I wanted to ask you, if you had let me do this question first. If you could guess what the most common gap is in an HR landscape throughout the country, being a professional I just want to know what you think. What's the most common gap that you think that HR teams throughout the country see right now?
Gaps as far as, skill set, or in what regard?
More internally. But what are people focusing to change within their internal team in HR, like going forward?
Yeah, so I would say, the ability in which, because of we're living in the moment of this Great Resignation, there's a lot of emphasis. We hear this a lot from our leaders. Like, what are we going to do to combat, the people that are leaving? We don't want to see people leave. How can we be proactive to help mitigate some of those concerns? So I would say right now, that's where a lot of HR folks are focusing their attention right now, to help address, what they may be experiencing. I talked a little bit about it here just a few minutes ago, but I would say that's probably one of the biggest areas, because talent is so hard to come by, and they're commanding more in salaries. This virtual world that we all work in is becoming more common. If you thought about this 2 years ago, we're all on Zoom, right? I mean, we've been having Zoom fatigue over these last 2 years. So just being able to adapt to that environment as well, and getting leaders comfortable that you don't have to work out of the Chicago office, or you don't have to work out of the Rochester office. You can be remote and be successful. So, I think those have been some challenges that HR organizations have been faced with, and keeping people safe. Coming back into the work environment, and do we have to be masked? This whole COVID thing isn't going away anytime soon. And so how do you keep employees safe in the work environment whether work in a manufacturing environment, hospitality, which we all have, at Constellation. And so, those have been things that we've had to figure out in this time as well.
Yeah. And the other gap that I would have said, Tyler, that I think Jim addressed was I see TA and HR not really have that type of relationship that you just described. I mean, the level that you guys are going from a succession planning standpoint, that futuristic look. I mean, a lot of businesses are only focused 12 months, if you're lucky, on that skills, where their skills are going to be needed. But it also seems like Jim has built a relationship with finance and some of the other key stakeholders required. I mean, to get these types of investments that he's looking to make in the people from a retention bonus perspective or a compensation benefit strategy, whatever it might be. One of the things that I wanted to ask about as well is you talked about kind of the changes that we all experienced. What did you have to learn in your own leadership style, Jim, during the pandemic? You mentioned needing to go virtual. Obviously, in leadership, we needed to learn new skills, but also some of our weaknesses were challenged. Like, what did you have to learn?
So I needed to learn to pick up on cues from my team. If were they working too hard relative to not being able to walk away from their laptop, being able to touch base in a virtual way, where I manage by walking around, when we're in the environment. I love to stop by people's, workstations. How's it going? Check in. That went away, that day in March, back in 2020. And so, we haven't had that opportunity. So trying to make these connections through Microsoft Teams and IMing and WebEx meetings, has been an additional effort. For me, just to be more proactive, at that, just to, send quick notes. Hey, I'm thinking of you. I hope everything is going well. Just making sure that our employees, my team, feels like I'm walking along with them. It may be difficult that, they got little kids at home. How's that going? Just asking those questions, as we've all been experiencing some unique challenges over these last couple of years. So that's been something that's, taken me a little, I just had to adjust, I had to, pivot a little bit to make sure I was focusing on that versus, what I had been accustomed to doing.
It's so interesting to hear you say that, because I've heard that from a number of leaders, and Tyler and I have too, is that when you lose those visual cues of leadership, to you can visually see when somebody's frustrated, or you can visually see that they're having a bad day. That was some of the hardest challenges for leaders that are feelers. So hearing you say that is just so cool, because that's honestly where I think a lot of people struggle, is that, and where some honestly started going to micromanagement because they couldn't see the work being done now. And if I can't see it, and I don't see that it's being completed in this certain amount of time, now I'm going to micromanage the work itself. So fascinating.
It's absolutely, and it takes a level of trust, that you need to have with your employees. And I would say I've gotten to know my folks in the last few years probably better on a personal level than I would have otherwise. I mean, you see kids walk by, cats are jumping on desks, and dogs are barking, and it's allowed you to ask that question, like, oh, I didn't know you had a dog, I didn't know you had a cat. Just being able to ask those questions, see what's around them in their home environment and their background. Like, I don't know, would you bring a violin to work? Well, I got to know that you're a musician, so it's just stuff like that that I think we've been able to do, and we forced ourselves to do WebEx meetings and happy hours where we're sharing, funny stories, pictures, wear a funny hat. Like, we're just doing stuff to, make sure that culture and that importance of feeling connected is still there, even though I'm staring at a computer screen most of the day.
I could talk to y'all forever about this subject. I think HR suits me well, guys. This is fun.
See why I love it?
I feel you. Jim, this is kind of a selfish question. Man, I love this. If you could give a young person some advice, a senior in high school going into college right now that's very HR minded and wants to get into HR, where do they start? Where do they go? And how do they do it? Can I ask you that?
Sure. Well, so, I stumbled in college. I didn't know I wanted to go into HR, but I knew I wanted to do something legal, based. So I took a class that had a little bit of labor law in it. That was sort of my segue into what they called industrial relations at the time. So, I think obviously people's, the curriculum that they want to study is, a great way to, figure out and test whether or not the subject is something of interest to them. But, even getting internships or trying to, reach out to folks to say, oh, I've heard about HR. There's communities out there, people they can reach out to talk with, network, just to say, tell me a little bit about what you do, and on a day-to-day basis, and learn from that to figure out, okay, yeah, that's something I want to pursue in college or longer term. So, I think that's a great way. And then those for anybody that's growing up, I've always told folks to be a sponge. Try to learn as much as you can, whether it's you want to go into HR, you want to go into finance. If people offer you an opportunity to do something, do it. Because you're going to learn from that opportunity. So soak up as much as you can, because all that experience is going to help you in the long run. So, something that I've always tried to do, and I try to teach that on my kids, to do that as well. They don't listen as well as others, but anyways,
I'm going to start collecting data, Tyler, on asking HR people how they got into HR, because you that is literally the number one answer is like, I tripped into it. All right. Rarely are people like saying, I'm going for HR. And it's funny to even hear Jim, who's so prolific in this space, and I would say a great HR unicorn, if you will, that a lot of HR leaders would look up to. Jim, I want to go back to something that you were saying, though, and as we're kind of wrapping up here, is one of my final questions to you, is you said you had to get to know your employees personally, or you got to, right? I was of the belief too, and it was probably passed down from my father and my grandfather, is that we never wanted to mix our personal life with our professional life. It just wasn't kosher. It was not cool. You didn't really want to share your secrets with anybody that you worked with. We fought. Maybe it was because I'm Italian. I don't know, but maybe you guys experienced the same thing. But we fought so hard, and here we are during the pandemic, that now that came colliding together. Do you think that leaders are now better leaders because they have been forced to get to know people on a personal level? And why were leaders so afraid of connecting with their employees emotionally?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So, I mean, I do think the connectedness and the strength of relationship is improved when you get to know the whole person. And so we have our business life, and that's a lot what we see. But there's so much that people carry into the building with them that is personal, and to tap into that as a leader, to be empathetic, to listen, to laugh, or in the experiences that people have, I think are so important. And it's something that I value, as an individual, as a human being, to get to know people beyond, oh, you work in HR. Oh, you got kids. What do their kids do? You like cars. You like to play the violin. You like to golf, whatever it is. I always feel like that gives me an enhanced sense of connectivity to my team. And, I've always been someone that's been sort of private too, but I've had to open up and share some of the, things personally. And I feel like that's been hopefully helpful to the people that I work with as well, that I'm sharing and being vulnerable in that space. I mean, I think that's the piece that people didn't want to be vulnerable, but that's why the hesitancy, maybe before, is there's a level of vulnerability, like, oh, I have kids and I have commitments outside of work. I don't want my boss to know that, because I don't want them to think that I'm not going to be able to do this project because I got to get home and, get my kid off the bus. Like, all that stuff's gone away. And you know what? I want you to do those things, because you're going to be a better employee knowing that you have the freedom to take care of, the things that are most important to you, which isn't your job. It's your family. It's the people that you love, the friendships that you have. And so if you take care of the person on a personal level, I think everything else has a way of falling into place from a work perspective.
I love that. And one of the things you mentioned was that people carry so much with them into the walls, and now they might be a virtual walls of work. How do you limit those distractions as an employer? Like, how do you prevent those types of distractions that are standing in the way of engagement or efficiencies and outputs and things like that?
Well, I think we, as a business, you need to embrace them, that people are going to have those challenges, and you got to give people the space to do that. We've been talking about having what we're calling a flexibility program at Constellation, where people will be able to elect to work home a certain number of days and work in the office a certain number of days. And it's going to be dependent on what's going to work best for them. So again, I think, businesses need to embrace those challenges, and those that do it well are going to be the employers that win when they're recruiting, because those that don't, I think, are going to have a harder time getting the employees and the level of engagement that they need to have to be able to be successful as an organization.
Love that soapbox.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see it all day. I see pretty, Fortune 500 companies lose out to some awesome talent for not having a flexibility package, like you mentioned, Jim. And it's like, get with the times, fellas. Right. And I think I just wanted to sign off here by saying, what kind of legacy does Jim Malvaso want to leave behind when it's all said and done?
That's a great question. I go back to something I said before. I think it's how many leaders that I've been able to help develop and allow them to achieve their goals, career-wise, personal-wise. If I've been able to help touch somebody from a mentoring perspective to do what they want to do that makes them happy, then that's what I'm most proud of. And I would say if I can do that for my kids and see them grow and develop and do the things that they love, then that's probably going to be the legacy that I'm most proud of, and continuing to have a happy and loving marriage with my wife and many years to look forward to in retirement. So those are the things that I'll be looking forward to.
Jim, thank you so much for being a special guest. Thanks so much for all the great work that you guys are doing and your leadership over there at Constellation Brands to really change and impact the lives of your employees, but also the community in which Tyler used to live, I still live, and being a part of. So thank you so much for your the conversation today and all your insights.
Kevin, Tyler, thank you so much. Made this nice and comfortable, and really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You bet, Jim.
All right.
Well, thank you so
Cheers,
much,
guys.
Jim.
Cheers.